Perfectionism is like running a marathon in high heels. Sure, it's gonna get you some attention, but every step is uncomfortable, takes way too much effort, completely takes any enjoyment away, and drains your energy. In this video, we're gonna talk about how perfectionism really is just the fear of failure in disguise. I'll share what we can do when we realize overcoming perfectionism is the only way to get to that finish line without feeling exhausted and full of blisters. So my humble brag whenever I would do a job interview is that I'm a perfectionist. And I used to think that it meant that I worked really hard and I was amazing at everything. Then I realized it means the complete opposite. Some people mistakenly believe that perfectionism means having high standards, but it's actually a result of thinking I'm not good enough or I'm not perfect enough. And so we rely on external validation, seeking other people's approval to feel good about ourselves. And while I'm proud of the fact that I'm the type of person that tries to put out quality work, I don't love that constant pressure that I put on myself to be perfect, because it just means more effort than necessary, more stress, and I burn out really easily. So for example, sometimes I find it really hard to just enjoy the process of making YouTube videos because I'm such a stickler for details. And the problem is that most of those details don't even matter. I mean, I go through this all the time. It's like, oh, maybe I could have said that better. Or maybe I could have said that better. I could have said that better. But here's what I've learned. 1, perfectionism is really procrastination in disguise. 2, if we're not careful, perfectionism can be really discouraging, demotivating, and cause us to give up entirely. And 3, perfectionism really just adds to feeling more stressed. It eats up time and leaves tasks unfinished. It pushes us to constantly exert maximum effort, leading to burnout and exhaustion. And it gives us blisters that slow us down and can completely stall our progress. I do see the advantages of some of the traits of perfectionism, like having high standards and paying attention to detail. Having a strong work ethic and drive, being able to push ourselves when there are challenges. I always say that our traits and habits and personalities aren't bad or good, they just are. And they're only bad if they impact us and the people around us in a negative way. That's when we know that there may be things about ourselves to work on and focus our efforts for self-improvement. So if the thought of making mistakes terrifies you to the point of not starting something, if you're constantly missing deadlines because you agonize over every detail, if you give up on your goals and dreams because the process of learning and making mistakes don't measure up to your unrealistic standards, understand that this really just boils down to fear. The fear of messing up or making a huge mistake. If you're like me and being perfect is making things harder than they need to be, here are a few things that might help you prevent those types of life blisters. Practice delegating tasks and accept things as good enough. Because sometimes good enough really is just good enough. For example, I let my partner do things around the house, even though I know he'll probably do a sloppy job. If I do it myself, it will be neat and as perfect as I want it to be. But doing it myself also means more of my time and energy. So I accept my partner's efforts as good enough without criticizing him, and I thank him for his effort. Show self-compassion. If you got a bad grade or you messed up a presentation, treat yourself with kindness like you would treat a friend. Why is it that we give people we care about more grace than we give ourselves? So how about saying things to yourself that you would say to a friend? All the cliches like nobody's perfect, dust yourself off and try again. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Shake it off. All the pop hits that you can think of. Challenge your perfectionism by taking action. So if you aren't confident in making those work presentations, put your hand up for it. Whenever I feel the triggers like, yeah, I can't release this video because people are going to think it's terrible, at some point, I just have to release that video. So that's something that I'm working on, which is feeling confident that I know I did a great job, the best job I know how to do. The goal is a video a week, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done and complete. And the more I do that, the more I'm finding that the consequences of that perceive failure are not as catastrophic as I thought that they'd be. Create accountability. Find someone who will encourage you to take action and keep moving forward even when things aren't quite perfect, and who will call you out when you put things off or feel afraid to commit. Someone who isn't also a procrastinator. And finally, if perfectionism is trying to run the marathon of life for you, remind yourself why that's not a good idea. Studies show that perfectionism can lead to feelings of anxiety, overwhelm, making poor decisions, stress, reduced confidence, and it can even affect relationships. I know I'm tired of not getting started with things for fear of being embarrassed because I didn't do things perfectly, because I messed up somehow, and being so afraid of failing that I say no to opportunities, and working so intensely that I can't enjoy things like making YouTube videos. I've been listening a lot lately to Eckhart Tolle's podcast. He's the author of The Power of Now. And he talks about the importance of living in the present moment and letting go of the need for control. And it makes me realize that perfectionism is really just fixating on past mistakes or things I'm worried about in the future. So by focusing on the present moment, we're less likely to have the urge to control outcomes and obsess over mistakes and flaws. You're perfect the way you are, with all the flaws and mistakes, even if your mistake is running a marathon in heels. Perfectionists can become so focused on achieving goals and completing tasks that they neglect their emotional and physical needs. If that sounds like you, you're gonna want to start a self-care routine that doesn't take a whole lot of time, because I know you're busy. So watch this video next, where I talk about simple and effective self-care practices that fit into any schedule. Until next time.
All you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.